Did you notice that Karoline Leavitt's name was abruptly removed off the air? It wasn't an accident. ABC recently imposed a complete gag order, and the reason for this is that Leavitt's legal team was able to access more than 300 internal emails between The View's producers and high-level political operatives. This caused a complete panic. Only a few weeks ago, Joy and Whoopi were making fun of Leavitt's lawsuit on national television. But now there is silence, and The View's lawyers are twitching because Leavitt has the receipts, not just accusations, but concrete proof that ABC planned an attack against her. In the meantime, ABC executives are in full meltdown mode. They have prohibited any discussion of the lawsuit on air and are pleading with advertisers not to withdraw their funding. Those leaked emails reveal a covert directive from producers to undermine the credibility of Leavitt and other political figures. This is not journalism, but rather a coordinated smear campaign. This is more than just a lawsuit. It's an expose of how media giants shape narratives. And believe me, things are only going to get worse for The View. You know how it all began with sheer conceit, the instant Karoline Leavitt made her lawsuit public. Remember that moment of smug smiles, eye rolls, and dismissive chuckles? The View hosts didn't even hesitate. They laughed and treated it like a joke, as if they were too powerful to be touched. They weren't just disagreeing with Karoline, they were mocking the very idea that she could hold them accountable. Then they went straight for character assassination, and Goldberg didn't just criticize her politics. She attempted to erase her entire career with that iconic eye roll. Without being woke, Whoopi sneered. Let that sink in. She didn't even debate her opinions. Instead, she told millions of viewers that Karoline had no merit at all. Whoopi wasn't. Alone, though, because Sunny Hostin jumped in and doubled down, declaring once more that this wasn't a debate or an opinion, but a direct attempt to undermine Karoline's credibility. And it didn't stop there. This wasn't a single heated argument. Rather, it was a full-fledged campaign that continued to push the same narrative day after day. Karoline is a fraud. She is not legitimate. And guess what? That's exactly what the lawsuit calls out. Defamation, slander, and malicious attacks meant to ruin her career. How did The View respond with even more arrogance? It will be thrown out immediately, they bragged on air without realizing that they were creating exhibits in court. One of these women is a former prosecutor, Sunny Hostin. She should have known better. She should have seen the legal disaster they were walking into, but they were so accustomed to being untouchable that they were convinced their platform gave them absolute power, so they just kept pushing. Most people, when faced with a lawsuit, stop digging. They get cautious. They don't. The View doubled down, escalated, and made it worse, while Whoopi and Joy were laughing on air. Although The View hosts were rolling their eyes, you can bet that ABC's legal team was not laughing at all behind the scenes because, after reviewing the transcripts, they realized that Whoopi's dismissive handwave was not going away. Yes, that could cost ABC $800 million, not $8 million, $80 million, or $800 million. Let me tell you something, this isn't just about hurt sentiments. Karoline Leavitt legal team was assembling a legal bombshell expert report that calls this the most catastrophic defamation lawsuit against a TV show in recent history. This lawsuit doesn't just say The View hosts were biased or unfair, it shows that they purposefully spread lies about Karoline's career credentials and character. They didn't just disagree with her views, they launched a full-fledged attack trying to destroy her reputation in real time. And now, ABC executives are going crazy because Karoline didn't file this lawsuit for an apology and some hush money. She came for war. Her legal team didn't just piece together some random claims. They built a case that has ABC's legal analysts using two chilling phrases: actual malice and the legal threshold required to prevail in a defamation case against a prominent figure. Karoline's team is not arguing that The View hosts were being mean. Rather, they are demonstrating that these women intentionally lied to destroy her career. At first, The View producers attempted to dismiss this as another political lawsuit, but Karoline's legal team outwitted them by framing the case as career sabotage rather than mere legal repercussions, while ABC's public relations machine dismissed the lawsuit. Here's what's really causing ABC to panic. Karoline's lawyers were quietly assembling a case that has nothing to do with politics and everything to do with intentional defamation. This lawsuit offers clear and unequivocal evidence that the hosts of The View did not merely disseminate misleading information, they did so on purpose, knowing that what they were saying was untrue and that they were misrepresenting Karoline's qualifications. We're not discussing opinions here, we're talking about flat-out lies presented as fact. The hosts of The View didn't just question Karoline's qualifications, they fabricated stories about her, implying she lacked qualifications despite her extensive background. They misrepresented her work history in ways that could leave her completely unemployed in the political arena. And now, it's all coming back to haunt them. While Whoopi and Joy were laughing on camera, ABC's legal department was in full-blown meltdown mode. What happens when 300 confidential emails exposing a coordinated smear campaign suddenly end up in the hands of the person you tried to destroy? This could end multiple careers forever. Let me tell you what's really going on behind ABC's closed doors. These weren't just casual conversations that leaked. These are smoking gun emails confirming suspicions held for years. Karoline Leavitt's legal team received everything, not just a few hurtful messages. These emails unquestionably prove that the hosts weren't making impromptu comments. They were adhering to a script that a senior producer had written in black and white. Let that sink in. She's becoming too powerful among young conservatives. This wasn't about arguing points of view. Rather, it was about purposefully ruining someone's career because she was able to reach an uncontrollable audience. This is where it gets even more disturbing. Do you see why ABC hurried to end this lawsuit? It wasn't just about avoiding criticism. These emails also show a direct connection between the show's producers and outside political operatives. This means that when Whoopi and Joy criticize conservatives on air, they're not merely expressing their own opinions, rather, they're reading from a script. We're talking about meetings, lawyers calling in the middle of the night, producers being questioned about who they've been communicating with, and financial liability. This is full-scale damage control for what may be the biggest media scandal in decades. ABC knew exactly what was happening, but they allowed it to go on anyway. This is what no one expected. The emails are not limited to Target. The Perspective methodically attempted to discredit anyone developing appeal with younger audiences, and Karoline Leavitt revealed a hit list of young, rising conservative leaders. They had a plan to remove them, but it wasn't about facts. It was about power, and now the biggest worry within ABC, when there is documented evidence that a media giant coordinated false attacks with political operatives, this lawsuit could lead to a federal investigation. Executives are frantically negotiating not out of concern for journalistic integrity, but rather because they know their careers may be in jeopardy. ABC has one more option. Either cut The View loose and hope to contain the damage, or double down and risk taking the entire network down with it. ABC believed that The View was untouchable and that its solicitors could make this litigation go away, but they were completely mistaken. In a secret emergency meeting 3 weeks after Karoline Leavitt filed her lawsuit, ABC's legal team dropped the bombshell that turned everything upside down. Before their own solicitors broke the illusion, executives sat with confidence. The evidence is strong, and the damages suit is complete. Oppressive quiet that was justified, not by a conservative pundit or a competing network. The problem was not just one bad lawsuit, it was possibly the largest defamation case in television history. Then, the shocking figure that sent shockwaves through the room was that ABC stood to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. This was not an exaggerated estimate from Karoline's team, rather, it was ABC's own internal projection. Finally, with a trembling voice, one executive addressed the question that had been on everyone's mind. Can't we just pay her off and put an end to this? No, to brush this under the rug, Karoline's team had already turned down 3 other settlement offers. After 3 denials, she wasn't looking for a settlement. Instead, she wanted accountability. At that point, ABC's top legal expert predicted that she had a 70% probability of losing in court. Not a tie, but a 70% likelihood of being publicly humiliated in court. The View's producers who actively supported these attacks finally realized what they had done. They weren't just dealing with bad PR, they had created a legal disaster so vast that not even ABC's army of lawyers could stop what was coming. Executives, who had been making fun of this lawsuit for weeks, suddenly appeared as though they had seen a ghost. Whoopi Goldberg, Not only were Joy Behar and Sunny Hostin facing cancellation, but they were also directly responsible. Let that sink in. All of it could be destroyed because when you intentionally spread lies with malice, the legal shield around you vanishes. For years, they sat in those chairs making fun of lawsuits, ruining reputations, and treating accountability like a joke. Now that they were being hauled into court, it stopped being funny, and the ABC executives were in a panic. The network was on the brink of a civil war, and while some executives were desperately trying to save The View, others saw it as a ticking time bomb that needed to be set off immediately. As ABC executives scrambled to find a way out, the true disaster was happening behind the scenes, and it wasn't just legal. The hosts of The View were unraveling. These women who had spent years making fun of others, attacking their reputations, and acting untouchable were suddenly experiencing something completely foreign to them, not the fake outrage they put on. For the cameras, nor the scripted performative debates. Actual career ending. When I pulled back the curtain on what's actually happening at The View, on air, they were all grinning smugly and rolling their eyes dismissively. It was complete chaos, and the most damning part was that their carefully constructed public image was starting to crumble in ways that even their most devoted fans couldn't ignore. The lady who spent her whole career making fun of conservatives, Joy Behar, had a rare moment of unvarnished honesty when she realized that no one was listening. This is terrible, absolutely awful. Why didn't anyone stop us from saying that? When you consider that her public act and her private breakdown reveal everything you need to know about how terrified they truly are, you see that Joy Behar, who just minutes before had been laughing confidently off Karoline's lawsuit in front of millions of viewers, wasn't alone. Whoopi Goldberg, who has spent years ridiculing lawsuits, laughing at public scandals, and treating accountability like a joke, just realized that her own fortune is on the line, not ABC's money, and that some PR damage control her own fortune. Goldberg, who is typically the most self-assured and untouchable presence on the panel, had an explosive breakdown with producers. Her voice boomed through the backstage hallway. "You told us we were protected." For years, they thought that ABC's lawyers would fix their mistakes, that their executives would protect them, and that no matter what they said on television, they would never be held accountable. Now, however, they were in the crosshairs, and even Sunny Hostin, the group's supposed legal expert and the one who enjoys reminding viewers that she is a former prosecutor, was in a panic according to reports that were leaked from ABC insiders. Sunny was seen frantically going through transcripts of her previous statements about Karoline Leavitt, muttering to herself, "I called her a fraud on national television. I actually said she fabricated evidence." What was I thinking? Imagine the irony of a former prosecutor who should know defamation law better than anyone else, now realizing she might have incriminated herself on live television. When your own team turns against you, you know the ship is sinking. One ABC insider described the reality behind the scenes, and they're terrified, but trying to maintain the illusion that everything's fine. Just think about that for a moment. The Views panel wasn't just panicking, they were beginning to realize they had built their own downfall. To make matters worse, even their own employees, the producers, crew members, and ABC insiders, started leaking stories to the press. Behind the scenes, there was nothing but desperation, and the blame game had started. The same ladies who had assaulted Karoline Leavitt repeatedly were now assaulting one another in private meetings. The legal staff was being blamed by the producers. The legal team was blaming the hosts. The hosts were blaming ABC executives. It was total war inside ABC with no one willing to take responsibility. And the most embarrassing part? They were so shaken that they had to be coached on how to keep their fear hidden from the public. According to crew members backstage, producers were literally giving them pre-show pep talks like, "Act normal, don't show any concern about the lawsuit, smile like everything's fine." Imagine needing a pep talk just to convince millions of viewers that you aren't falling apart. Let's be real. If you have to be coached on how to act like you're not panicking, you're panicking. The most shocking part of all this, they thought they could keep this act going forever. For years, The View's hosts sat in those chairs tearing down reputations, mocking lawsuits, and treating real consequences like they didn't exist. Now, suddenly, they were the ones facing those consequences, and the entire world could see their facade crumbling in real time. Because here's the truth, this is no longer about politics, this is about accountability. And for the first time ever, The View's hosts are realizing they might not be able to escape it, as The View's hosts were melting down behind the scenes when a billion-dollar network began frantically deleting emails, cleaning up social media, and literally offering an 8-figure hush money deal. ABC executives were about to make things 10 times worse. They weren't just worried, they were terrified. See, ABC didn't try one last desperate move to make this lawsuit disappear. Instead, they threw the entire corporate playbook at Karoline Leavitt. Their first brilliant idea: throw money at the problem. Not just a little, a jaw-dropping $25 million. Naturally, Karoline saw through it without hesitation and rejected what was obviously nothing more than a costly hush money deal. When ABC's cash cannon failed, they changed their strategy, thinking that if they couldn't buy her silence, they could at least pressure her into it. At that point, they began requesting favors. ABC executives contacted mutual connections in an attempt to exert pressure on her to back off. They dispatched their influential friends to persuade her to do so. Imagine the haughtiness. Our host ruined your reputation on national television, but our mutual friend says you should just let it go. According to leaked reports, ABC dropped all pretenses and resorted to outright threats after Karoline viewed it as a desperate attempt to persuade her to drop the lawsuit. Their legal team, who had previously acknowledged in private that they had a 70% chance of losing this case, had the gall to try and threaten Karoline into submitting by saying, "We will ruin your reputation if you proceed with this lawsuit." Let's take a moment to think. The amount of inanity here is unbelievable. It's like a robber warning a household to drop the charges or I'll rob them again. Karoline Leavitt is suing ABC for defamation, and their genius legal strategy was to further disparage her. At this point, ABC was actively supporting Karoline's argument rather than merely making mistakes. But nothing comparable to what ABC attempted next. Indeed, ABC executives reportedly floated the idea of hiring Karoline as a commentator in a pitiful attempt to neutralize her by making her one of them. This was after months of allowing The View's host to tear this woman apart on live television, after dismissing her lawsuit as absurd, disparaging her career, and personally attacking her credibility. "Hey, we tried to purchase your quiet, ruined your reputation, and made fun of you for months. Would you like a job?" It was so obvious. Since Karoline had integrity, unlike ABC, she rejected them without hesitation. In contrast, behind closed doors, ABC executives were in full-blown panic mode. And when corporate executives panic, they don't apologize. Instead, they hide their tracks. Emails are being deleted in bulk, removing past statements from social media posts by editing and re-uploading video footage. This was comprehensive cover-up, not just damage control. While ABC's legal team was busy pressing the delete button, the hosts were frantically trying to rewrite history. These same women who had spent months gleefully attacking Karoline were suddenly making awkward, half-hearted statements on air. Not apologies, just vague, wishy-washy damage control. ABC's legal team knew they were sitting on a ticking time bomb, so they were racing to erase any digital evidence that could further damage their case. The problem is that when you start deleting emails and editing old broadcasts, you don't look innocent. You look guilty. Even devoted viewers began to wonder what was going on behind the scenes because of the abrupt change from ridicule to desperate backpedaling. You could feel the discomfort in their eyes, and they had no sorrow for what they said. They only regretted getting caught. Every threat backfired, every settlement offer was turned down, and every awkward attempt at PR damage management failed. The truth is that Karoline Leavitt wasn't backing down. She wasn't taking the money. She wasn't falling for the threats. And for the first time in history, ABC and The View were completely helpless to stop it. They weren't just losing this battle, they were speed-running their own destruction. They were like a drowning man flailing in the water, unaware that every desperate move was drawing them deeper. Would you think that ABC's panic isn't really a talk show at all, but rather a meticulously regulated propaganda factory with direct channels to political power players? It's not only about Karoline's lawsuit, it's about what's being unearthed from their deepest corners. Let me explain. The documents that Karoline's legal team has found show something so sinister that ABC executives are practically trembling in their expensive shoes, and people are only beginning to learn who is truly in charge. Karoline's complaint revealed a system so crooked it would make your skin crawl, in addition to exposing The View's bias. This isn't just a few biased remarks here and there. Rather, it's a full-fledged influence campaign masquerading as a chat show to sway public opinion while disguising itself as unplanned conversations. The worst part is that internal memos now show that ABC executives were not merely blatantly biased. Rather, they were directly instructed by corporate advertisers and political operatives about who to attack on air and who to defend. Just think about those intense arguments, dramatic spontaneous reactions, pre-approved forced laughter, fake outrage, and precisely timed narrative shifts, all of which were choreographed. This wasn't just a biased TV show, it was a carefully planned media weapon, and it gets even better. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's documented. The evidence is so damning that even ABC's top executives are frantically trying to contain it. But here's the real kicker. Karoline's lawsuit has revealed direct links between the opinions producers and political figures operating behind the scenes who never appear on camera but control exactly what you see. Karoline Leavitt was not the only target of The View. According to the lawsuit, the show has been waging a systematic smear campaign against anyone who poses a threat to the political and corporate interests of its handlers. This campaign is detailed in black and white emails that reveal the opinions of the producers, who were not only instructed on what stories to cover, but also on who to target, how to frame the narrative, and when to change public opinion about so-called hot topics. These were hit jobs with scripted lawsuits, frantic settlements, and internal ABC executives are facing a terrifying reality as a result of the panic surrounding this deception. The lawsuit has the potential to destroy not only The View, but their entire media operation because, believe it or not, The View was only the most noticeable component of a much larger machine. High-ranking political operatives and The View producers exchanged direct text messages that resembled military commands, according to Karoline's lawsuit. Think it over. We'll make sure the hosts handle it this week. It's a full-fledged political hit show masquerading as a daytime conversation show, not media bias. I promise you that the information in this lawsuit will make you furious. The court documents reveal private communication channels where political consultants weren't just suggesting topics, they were dictating who to attack, when to attack them, and what exact talking points to use. These weren't just casual conversations between the producers of the show and their political allies. This is a system, a coordinated effort, where Washington power players literally ordered hits on their political enemies through a show that millions of Americans thought was just entertainment. This isn't just speculative, though. These were senior advisors to major campaigns, current administration officials, and corporate interest people who had The View on speed dial whenever they needed a public takedown. One of the direct emails from the smoking gun states that in order to manage the Leavitt predicament, we need perspective. She's getting too good at communicating. That isn't an analysis. The producer of The View responded, "Consider it done. We'll make sure the hosts address it this week." This is not journalism, it's a direct order to destroy someone's reputation on national television. Keep in mind that this show wasn't just promoting biased narratives. It was a political weapon being used behind the scenes to eliminate threats in real time. Those impromptu TV conversations were prearranged by political strategists who wanted specific stories to be promoted that week, and they weren't just sporadic. Lawsuit records, frequent planning meetings, feedback loops, and even performance evaluations, where political leaders evaluated how well The View had carried out their demands. Discovering that your favorite coffee shop is actually a mafia front is similar to that. What appeared to be casual morning TV turned out to be a sophisticated media operation. And now Washington is even more alarmed than ABC executives, because Karoline's lawsuit threatens to expose a whole shadow system of media manipulation that has been going unchecked for years. Just think of all the other people who might be involved if these communications are made public in court. This is what's really frightening. There was no hesitation or doubt about whether this was morally or legally acceptable in these statements. If this degree of control over The View existed, how many other shows are covertly following directions from political cooperatives, and how many news items have actually been planned political takedowns? They discussed ruining reputations as if they were ordering coffee. In what may be the biggest indication yet that this lawsuit is a complete disaster, major advertisers who have supported The View through years of scandals are suddenly running away like rats from a sinking ship. I'm not talking about a few worried sponsors making noise. This is a full-blown advertiser exodus of the kind that puts television shows on life support. Karoline's lawsuit isn't just exposing The View, it's pulling back the curtain on a much bigger machine, and ABC executives know there's no way to put this genie back in the bottle money talks in this industry. Let me explain. It began with a large company subtly asking that their advertisements be removed from The View. This sounds insignificant, but it quickly escalated into a corporate stampede towards the door in a matter of days. Because The View is losing more than just a few sponsors, ABC executives are in full-blown panic mode. We're talking about urgent boardroom meetings, frantic calls to ad agencies, and desperate attempts to stop the financial bleeding. To put that into context, internal ABC documents show that since Karoline's case became public, their advertising revenue has dropped by more than 40%. A 10% loss indicates a crisis, while a 5% loss indicates a poor quarter. The companies departing are not small-time brands. Rather, they are large corporations that supported The View through years of controversy, including Whoopi's Holocaust remarks, political meltdowns, yelling fights, and outright misinformation. A 40% plus loss is financial Armageddon. What changed? That not a single sponsor left, but suddenly they're abandoning the show as if it were a nuclear accident? The solution we cannot risk is provided by a large corporation's leaked internal memo. This is where things get even worse for ABC. Association with a show facing credible claims of concerted defamation, that's corporate speak for, this show is now so toxic that remaining around could really damage our brand. TV series start dying at that point. Not only are the financial losses terrible, but they are so severe that ABC executives are rushing to limit the damage. Staff layoffs and budget cuts are already being contemplated, and it is now extremely likely that they will discontinue The View altogether. Yes, a show that has been airing for decades and is considered an untouchable daytime institution may disappear overnight because the hosts couldn't keep their mouths shut. However, let me tell you what's really alarming these corporations is what might be revealed if this case goes to trial. Trials are public, and every email, internal memo, and dirty little secret behind The View will be exposed for the world to see. These are the same corporations that didn't bat an eye when The View hosts made controversial statements about religion, pushed narratives about race and politics, and even attacked entire industries. Suddenly, they are acting as though the show is radioactive, which tells you everything you need to know about how serious these allegations are. And guess what? ABC still has no plan. Partnerships, which, let's face it, are really corporate speak for we're out of here. And the hosts are totally taken by surprise since they never thought their corporate supporters would truly leave them, no matter how ludicrous their actions were. They are currently viewing their shows. Advertisers are fleeing The View like rats from a sinking ship. And even more shocking betrayal is taking place behind closed doors as the financial foundation collapses beneath their feet, and they realize, for the first time in decades, that they are not untouchable. For the first time in ABC's history, the news division is openly rebelling against The View, and the company is tearing itself apart from the inside out. Executives are turning against one another in a civil war that could spell doom for Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny, and you won't believe who is secretly cheering for Karoline to win. This isn't just office politics either. This is full-scale warfare at one of America's largest TV networks. The View's reckless behavior has damaged the credibility of our whole news division, and ABC News executives have had enough of getting dragged through the mud because of it. They wrote a damning internal memo that is currently making the rounds of the organization. Take a moment to consider the fact that a major television network's news division is publicly denouncing its own employees. This is not only an internal dispute, it's potentially career-ending. There are now two camps among ABC's whole leadership. Loyalists of The View are frantically attempting to preserve Sunny and Whoopi, Joy at all costs. Executives who oppose The View believe that the program should be shut down before it destroys the entire network, but if they wait, it will only become worse. Several high-level ABC executives are secretly working with Karoline Leavitt's legal team, according to various sources. Let me reiterate that ABC's leadership is assisting in the development of the case against their own program. These internal whistleblowers are not just irate workers. They are seasoned executives who have had enough of The View acting above the law. One of them reportedly told a colleague that this lawsuit might be the only way to finally regain The View and restore integrity to our network. Let that sink in. When your own bosses are rooting for you to lose a lawsuit, you know you've crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. Meanwhile, as Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny desperately attempt to save their show, after weeks of strategic patience, Karoline Leavitt chose to speak up. She fired a 5W missile, causing network executives to cancel their holidays and rush back to headquarters in a complete panic. Karoline changed the course of events so that no one anticipated the 5 words that sent shockwaves through ABC. The company had been anxiously awaiting some sort of settlement demand, possibly even a counteroffer, to make this go away. ABC believed this to be about money, but they were completely mistaken. I'm not just suing the Viewpoint, I'm suing the entire system. That wasn't just a declaration of war on the entire media establishment. The reaction inside ABC headquarters was immediate chaos. Emergency meetings were called within hours, executives were racing back from vacation, and one insider described the panic as an extinction-level event. It wasn't just about the lawsuit anymore, it was about what Karoline might expose, because this is where things get even worse for ABC legal experts. Karoline wasn't looking for a payout. She was looking to bring down the entire house. The real panic began when Karoline's media strategy was flawless from the beginning, while the View hosts and ABC executives were frantically trying to control the narrative. One media attorney who reviewed the case said that Karoline's statement implied that she had evidence not only against The View, but against ABC's entire corporate hierarchy. This type of statement isn't made without substantial evidence to back it up. After waiting and watching them descend into anarchy, Karoline delivered a knockout blow just in time to alter the outcome of the match. ABC didn't anticipate it. Her 5-word statement caused advertisers to flee, intensified the internal conflict within ABC, and seriously jeopardized the survival of The View. However, the accountability Karoline was fighting for just showed up with an FBI badge. Because, let's face it, the federal government doesn't look into talk show disputes unless there is something much darker going on underneath. And what they've discovered has ABC insiders. What began as The View's arrogant character assassination has turned into something that has executives frantically destroying documents at 2 a.m, uttering 4 ominous phrases that could land someone in jail. This isn't just a civil lawsuit anymore, it's a federal case. And when the FBI starts requesting documents, ABC knows they've stumbled upon something huge. The documents and communications that Karoline's legal team was able to obtain have opened what one insider called a Pandora's box of scandals. Federal investigators aren't wasting their time on whether someone's feelings were hurt on daytime TV. Instead, they're looking into something far more serious. Evidence suggesting criminal coordination between media companies, political operatives, and corporate powers. Potential violations of campaign finance laws. Undisclosed political activities being run through ABC's network. These files may expose a crooked system of media manipulation that has gone unchecked for years, which is why ABC's legal team has completely changed. They're now working with criminal defense lawyers and aren't just battling a lawsuit anymore. That's the type of thing you do when you anticipate facing federal charges. The women who spent months making fun of Karoline while sitting across from Stern were confronted by FBI agents who could not be concealed by their studio audience or supportive producers. The network that once laughed at Karoline's lawsuit is now facing the possibility of congressional hearings and federal indictments. The executives who once thought their power made them untouchable are now experiencing what insiders describe as complete panic, because the truth is that you can't settle your way out of a federal investigation. You can't offer someone a job to make criminal charges disappear, and you definitely can't escape accountability when the FBI has your internal documents for your case. One former prosecutor put it this way: when federal investigators get involved, you're not just fighting to protect your reputation or your bank account. You're fighting to stay out of prison. Karoline Leavitt. This goes beyond self-validation. It's about revealing. This isn't just about winning a lawsuit. It's about exposing corruption that affects all Americans who watch news and the opinions of hosts who are too busy trying to save their careers to realize it's already too late. The FBI investigation had ABC executives reaching for their anxiety medication when the most pitiful spectacle in daytime television history occurred. This system has been using media platforms to manipulate public opinion for years. After months of viciously disparaging Karoline Leavitt in the media, the host's opinions have now collapsed in front of our eyes, and people find it quite embarrassing. On national television, darlings have been reduced to pleading for pity. Yes, you heard that right, in what was obviously a pre-planned segment that network lawyers likely spent all night creating, viewers witnessed something truly unprecedented. Goldberg, who looked like she would much rather be somewhere else, awkwardly stared into the camera and uttered the first line of their desperate plea. I think we all need to take a step back here because there has been a lot of unnecessary hostility. Oh, you have to be kidding me. And these are the same women who spent months. Joy Behar, yes, the same Joy Behar who never met a conservative she didn't want to attack, suddenly transformed into a soft-spoken grandmother figure with a voice so artificially gentle it would make Mr. Rogers suspicious. She whimpered, I don't know why this has to go so far. Can't we just sit down like adults and talk this out? The absolute audacity. After gleefully participating in a coordinated campaign to ruin Karoline's career, now she wants to talk it out like adults? The desperation was palpable. But the crown jewel of this humiliating display came from Sunny, looking directly into the camera with what she probably thought was sincerity. She pleaded, Karoline, if you're watching, I think there's a way we can resolve this without dragging it through the courts. Oh, now they want to settle? Let's be real. These weren't apologies. These were thinly veiled attempts to make a devastating lawsuit disappear. And the body language told the real story. Their carefully crafted words tried to hide it. Every single host sat with unnaturally rigid postures, plastered on smiles that never reached their eyes, the unmistakable look of people being forced to eat crow on national television. This wasn't damage control. This was the television equivalent of throwing yourself at someone's feet and begging for mercy. Viewers weren't fooled for a second. Social media exploded with reactions, calling out the host's blatant hypocrisy. One viral comment summed it up perfectly. Oh, now they want to talk things out after weeks of trashing Karoline? Too late. The contrast couldn't have been more obvious, from confidently mocking Karoline to desperately pleading with her, all within weeks. But while the View hosts were putting on this pathetic performance, what was happening behind the scenes? Advertisers are abandoning ship as federal investigators sift through their communications. The number of hundreds of millions that ABC officials are figuring out? Here's where it becomes even more intriguing. Did you notice what they left out of their brief plea? This disaster could cost them. None of them genuinely expressed regret, acknowledged the mounting evidence against them, or acknowledged any wrongdoing. Who can blame them? After years of thinking you're untouchable and can say anything you want about conservatives without facing any repercussions, you suddenly find yourself facing an $800 million lawsuit with the FBI involved. This would make anyone desperate enough to embarrass themselves on national television, but these pitiful appeals for mercy may be too little, too late behind closed doors at ABC. Following 27 years of liberal smugness controlling the airwaves, something unimaginable is happening. It's possible that The View will be canceled. Yes, you heard correctly, and Joy and Whoopi are occupied with their phony excuses. There is concrete proof that ABC executives have already developed comprehensive backup plans for canceling the show in the event that Leavitt's lawsuit goes to trial. So network executives are not merely considering it, they are actively preparing for it. This is why network executives are frantically getting ready for life after The View. Executives are already working on exit strategies for the hosts behind their backs, and press releases announcing the show's end have already been written. This is where things turn completely disastrous for these women. Alternative content is already being developed for the soon-to-be vacant time slot. According to ABC's financial predictions, it would be practically unfeasible to continue The View if the entire $800 million judgment were awarded. The math just doesn't add up. In an internal memo, a senior ABC executive stated that we must get ready for life after The View. ABC executives are already writing their professional obituaries, talking about a backstab from the very people they thought had their backs. This lawsuit could make the show financially unsustainable, and the hosts are unaware that these plans even exist. Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny are clinging to the belief that ABC will protect them no matter what. According to industry sources, the timing of this litigation couldn't have been worse for The View. The show's ratings were already dropping, and advertisers were starting to doubt their commitment. This lawsuit is pushing an ABC program that was on the verge of collapse off the cliff. Executives are preparing worst-case scenarios as panic erupts, and shareholders are demanding to know how a single lawsuit may end a 27-year-old program. The gap between the hosts' on-air confidence and their real job security has never been more glaring than now, as budgets are being reallocated in preparation for The View to become an expensive footnote in television history. Meanwhile, ABC executives are getting ready for The View's funeral, and the hosts continue to show up every day acting as though nothing is wrong, unaware that their bosses are already measuring the coffin. Let me tell you something. If Karoline's lawsuit is successful, which their own network doesn't think they can win, The View, which has been a platform for liberal talking points for nearly 3 decades, will cease to exist. Replacement programming is already in development, cancellation announcements are drafted and ready to go, and the only question left is whether you think The View should be canceled or if they deserve a second chance. These women spent decades attacking conservatives with impunity without ever considering the possibility of consequences. Let's hear your thoughts in the comments section below. If you want to stay up to speed on the greatest media breakdown in history, hit the like button for the upcoming update.